I always believed that family would have my back no matter what. My name is Brewster, and I worked hard to build a comfortable life for myself, my wife Jessica, and even my mom Patricia. Jessica and my mother had grown especially close over the years, which I thought was a blessing. Little did I know that the two women I supported financially and loved unconditionally were plotting behind my back. When Jessica started acting differently, I felt something was off, but I never imagined the betrayal waiting for me. If you are watching this, drop a comment about where you are from, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear how I discovered my wife was cheating with my full support team backing her up. I met Jessica 7 years ago at a charity gala in downtown Chicago. I was there representing my investment firm, and she was volunteering at the event. The moment I saw her across the crowded ballroom with her radiant smile and confident stance, I knew I had to introduce myself. We connected instantly over our shared love for classic films and Italian cuisine. Our first date was at a small family-owned restaurant where we talked until the owner politely asked us to leave because they needed to close. Our relationship progressed naturally and joyfully. Within 6 months, I knew Jessica was the woman I wanted to spend my life with. I proposed during a weekend trip to Napa Valley underneath a canopy of stars at a vineyard I had rented out for the evening. She cried tears of joy as she said yes, and I felt like the luckiest man alive. The wedding was everything we had dreamed of, small but elegant, with only our closest friends and family in attendance. My mother Patricia beamed with pride throughout the ceremony, telling everyone who would listen that Jessica was the daughter she never had. Seeing the two most important women in my life form such a strong bond filled me with incredible happiness. After we married, I worked diligently to advance my career in financial services. My hard work paid off as I climbed the corporate ladder, eventually becoming a senior partner at my firm. The hours were long, but the rewards were substantial. I was able to provide a beautiful home in an upscale neighborhood for Jessica, and myself and I purchased a comfortable condo for my mother just 10 minutes away from us. Jessica decided not to continue her career in event planning after we got married. I supported her decision, completely encouraging her to pursue her passions without the pressure of needing to contribute financially. She took up photography, interior design, and cooking classes, all funded by my income. I never questioned this arrangement because seeing her happy and fulfilled was worth every penny. Patricia, my mother, had struggled financially since my father left when I was 12. Working 2 jobs to raise me on her own had taken its toll, and I promised myself that once I could afford it, she would never worry about money again. I paid off her debts, covered her monthly expenses, and made sure she had everything she needed. Her retirement was secure because of my planning and generosity. Jessica and Patricia spent a lot of time together. They went shopping, took cooking classes, attended yoga sessions, and had regular lunch dates. They even vacationed together when my work prevented me from taking time off. I was thrilled they had formed such a close relationship, believing that family bonds were the foundation of a happy life. My faith in our marriage was absolute. I trusted Jessica completely and believed that our commitment was unshakable. We had discussed having children in the near future, and I was excited about starting the next chapter of our lives together. The thought that anything could threaten our happiness never crossed my mind. The first hint that something was amiss came about 8 months ago. Jessica, who had never shown much interest in fitness before, suddenly became obsessed with going to the gym. She began working out 5 days a week, always at odd hours. Sometimes she would leave the house at 4:30 in the afternoon, claiming she preferred the early evening classes, but would not return until well after 8 o'clock at night. Her wardrobe underwent a dramatic transformation as well. Gone were the casual, comfortable clothes she typically wore around the house, replaced by fashionable workout gear and stylish new outfits that I had never seen before. She started wearing makeup even for her gym sessions, which struck me as unusual since she had always been comfortable in her natural beauty. Our intimate life changed too. Jessica became increasingly distant, often claiming she was too tired or not in the mood. When we did connect physically, it felt mechanical, as if she was simply going through the motions without any emotional investment. The passionate, loving woman I had married seemed to be fading away before my eyes. Then there were the secretive phone calls. Jessica would step outside or into another room whenever her phone rang. I would catch glimpses of her smiling at text messages. But when I asked who she was talking to, she would quickly say it was just her friend Samantha or her cousin Amanda. The phone would be locked and placed face down whenever she was not using it, a new habit that made my stomach twist with unease. Concerned and confused, I turned to my mother for advice. Patricia and I had always been close, and she knew Jessica better than anyone else in my life. I invited her for coffee one afternoon, while Jessica was at one of her gym sessions, hoping for some maternal wisdom or insight. "Mom, have you noticed anything different about Jessica lately?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. Patricia stirred her coffee slowly, not meeting my eyes. Different how I explained my observations: the gym obsession, the new clothes, the emotional distance, and the secretive behavior with her phone. As I spoke, I expected to see concern mirror my own, but instead my mother seemed almost defensive. "Brewster, you work such long hours. Jessica gets lonely. Maybe this gym thing is just her way of occupying her time," she said dismissively. "Women need to reinvent themselves sometimes. It keeps things fresh." When I pressed further, suggesting that something did not feel right, Patricia actually seemed irritated. "You are being paranoid. Jessica loves you. Stop trying to control her life just because she is developing interests outside of your marriage." Her response left me feeling even more confused and isolated. I had expected support and understanding, but instead felt like I was being scolded for having legitimate concerns. Nevertheless, I tried to take her advice to heart. Perhaps I was overreacting. Maybe Jessica just needed some space to explore her own interests. That evening, I attempted to have an honest conversation with Jessica about how I was feeling. I suggested we plan a weekend getaway to reconnect, but she immediately said she had plans with her new gym friends. When I expressed disappointment, she accused me of being clingy and not respecting her independence. The conversation ended with her walking away, leaving me with more questions than answers. After weeks of mounting suspicion, I finally decided I needed to know the truth. The constant anxiety was affecting my work and my mental health. I canceled an important client meeting one Thursday afternoon, telling my assistant I had a family emergency. In reality, I planned to follow Jessica to her supposed fitness class. I parked my car a block away from our house and waited. At exactly 4:15, Jessica emerged, looking stunning in a fitted dress I had never seen before. She got into her car and drove away, clearly not dressed for any kind of workout. My heart pounded painfully in my chest as I followed at a safe distance, trying to stay calm despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Instead of heading toward the gym, Jessica drove to the downtown area and pulled into the parking garage of the Westwood Hotel, one of the most expensive hotels in the city. I found a spot several rows away and waited a few minutes before following her inside. The elegant lobby was busy with business travelers and tourists, making it easy for me to blend in as I watched Jessica walk confidently to the elevator without stopping at the front desk. She pressed the button for the 12th floor. I waited until the next elevator arrived, my hands shaking as I pushed the same button. When the doors opened on 12, I stepped out cautiously, looking both ways down the corridor. I caught a glimpse of Jessica turning right at the far end of the hallway. Moving as quietly as possible, I followed, stopping at the corner and peering around it just in time to see her knock on room 1234. The door opened and I saw him, Michael Foster, my colleague from the marketing department at my firm. He pulled Jessica into an embrace, kissing her passionately before they disappeared inside the room. I stood frozen, my world collapsing around me. The betrayal was even worse than I had feared. Not just anyone, but someone I worked with. Someone who smiled to my face every day knowing he was sleeping with my wife. I stumbled back to the elevator, barely aware of my surroundings, as I made my way to my car. Once inside, the full impact hit me like a physical blow. I could not breathe. I could not think. All I could feel was a searing pain, unlike anything I had ever experienced. The woman I loved, the woman I had given everything to, had been lying to me for who knew how long. After sitting in my car for nearly an hour, I managed to compose myself enough to drive home. Once there, I went straight to our home office and opened Jessica's laptop, which she had carelessly left unlocked. With trembling fingers, I searched through her emails and messages, finding a dedicated email account I had never known about. The correspondence between Jessica and Michael went back 6 months. 6 months of lies, of secret meetings, of betrayal, while I worked to provide the comfortable lifestyle that gave Jessica the freedom to pursue her affair. They exchanged explicit messages and intimate photos. They made plans for weekends when I was away on business. They even joked about how oblivious I was. But the most shocking discovery came when I found messages discussing a business project I was working on, a potential partnership that would significantly expand our firm's client base. Michael had been using information Jessica gleaned from our home conversations to position himself favorably with senior management. My wife was not just betraying me emotionally and physically, she was undermining my career for her lover's benefit. I printed key emails and took screenshots of text exchanges, securing the evidence before replacing everything exactly as I had found it. Then I sat in our living room, surrounded by photos of our wedding and our supposedly happy life together, and waited for Jessica to return. It was after 11 when she finally came home, smelling of expensive cologne that was not mine. She seemed surprised to find me sitting in the darkened room. "Brewster, why are you sitting here in the dark? Is everything okay?" I turned on the lamp beside me, revealing the stack of printed emails on the coffee table. "No, Jessica. Everything is not okay. I know about Michael." Her expression shifted from confusion to shock, then to a cold, defensive anger. There was no remorse, no shame, just irritation at being caught. "How did you find out?" she asked, not even bothering to deny it. "I followed you today. I saw you at the hotel. And then I found your emails." Jessica laughed bitterly. "Well, I guess the cat is out of the bag then." I asked her how she could do this to me, to us, after 7 years of marriage. Her response shattered any remaining illusion I had about our relationship. "You really want to know, Brewster? You are never home. You are always working, always focused on making more money. Do you know how lonely that is? Michael actually listens to me. He makes me feel desired, not just provided for like some pet. I worked those hours to give us the life you wanted," I countered, my voice breaking. "I never asked for this big house or all these things," she shouted back. "I wanted your time, your attention. Since I could not get that, I found someone who could give me what I needed. I deserved to be happy." There was no apology, no acknowledgement of the pain she had caused. Instead, she turned the blame on me, making her betrayal somehow my fault. When I brought up how she had shared confidential information about my work, she shrugged it off as if it was inconsequential. Devastated and unable to continue the conversation, I grabbed my keys and left. Without thinking, I drove to the one place I thought would offer comfort, my mother's condo. Patricia answered the door in her robe, surprised by my late-night visit. One look at my face told her something was seriously wrong. "Brewster, what happened? You look terrible." I collapsed onto her couch and poured out the whole story, discovering Jessica's affair with Michael, the hotel, the emails, everything. Through my tears, I waited for the maternal comfort and outrage on my behalf that I desperately needed. Instead, my mother's response felt like a second betrayal. "Well, what did you expect?" Patricia said, sitting across from me with an expression more like disapproval than sympathy. "You are hardly ever home. Jessica is a young, attractive woman. She needs attention." I stared at her in disbelief. "Are you actually defending her cheating on me?" Patricia sighed as if I was being unreasonable. "I am not defending it exactly, but marriages go through rough patches. People make mistakes. If you had been more attentive, maybe this would not have happened. I was working to support both her and you," I said, my shock turning to anger. "I pay for everything Jessica wants. I bought you this condo. I pay all your bills. And we are both very grateful," my mother said quickly. "But money is not everything, Brewster. You need to try to understand Jessica's perspective. She made a mistake, but if you love her, you should try to work through this. Marriage is about forgiveness." I could not believe what I was hearing. My own mother was taking Jessica's side after such a fundamental betrayal. She continued to lecture me about how I needed to be the bigger person, how I should consider marriage counseling, how I should not make any rash decisions while emotional. There was not a single word about how I had been wronged or how Jessica had violated the most basic trust in our marriage. I left my mother's condo feeling more alone than ever. The two women I had loved and supported unconditionally had both turned against me in my moment of greatest need. Driving around aimlessly in the middle of the night, I realized that I had some serious thinking to do about the future of both relationships. 2 days later, still reeling from the double betrayal, I was sitting in my home office when a notification popped up on my phone, a text message from Patricia to Jessica that had been accidentally sent to our family group chat instead of directly to Jessica. My mother immediately deleted it, but not before I saw the preview. "Did you talk to him? Does he suspect anything else?" Curious and increasingly suspicious, I used the recovery software I had installed after discovering Jessica's affair to retrieve the deleted message. The full text read, "Did you talk to him? Does he suspect anything else? Michael called me worried about the work project. Make sure Brewster does not find out we have been meeting." My blood ran cold. The wording suggested this was not the first time they had discussed Michael. Digging deeper, I recovered more deleted messages between my mother and wife, revealing a disturbing truth my mother had known about the affair for months. Not only had she known, but she had actively covered for. Jessica warned her when I mentioned my suspicions and even met with Michael several times. In one particularly painful exchange from 3 months earlier, Jessica had written, "I think I might want to leave Brewster eventually. Michael and I have been talking about a future together." My mother's response: "Be smart about this. Brewster is generous now, but if you leave him the wrong way, you will get nothing. Wait until after his promotion and bonus. Make sure you are positioned for the best settlement possible." They had been plotting not just the affair, but an eventual divorce that would maximize Jessica's financial gain. My mother's primary concern in these messages was not her son's heartbreak, but ensuring her own financial security continued. "Remember that my arrangement depends on Brewster's goodwill. If you leave him, make sure I am taken care of too." The betrayal went deeper than I could have imagined. The next day I happened to come home early and overheard Jessica and my mother talking in the kitchen. I stopped outside the door listening to their conversation. "He is still upset, but he will get over it," Jessica was saying. "I will play the remorseful wife for a while. The important thing is to keep things stable until we figure out the next steps." "You need to be careful," my mother replied. "If he gets too suspicious and talks to a lawyer before you are ready, it could mess up everything. The prenup has an infidelity clause, but it is hard to prove after the fact if you are careful." "Michael is being patient," Jessica said. "And I have already started moving some money into my personal account. Small amounts that Brewster would not notice." "Good girl," my mother approved. "I have been telling Brewster that marriages go through hard times and that he needs to forgive you. He has always been a sensitive boy too, trusting for his own good." I retreated silently, my mind racing. The two women I had supported financially and emotionally were conspiring not just to betray my trust, but to take advantage of me financially. The pain of this realization was almost unbearable, but it also sparked something else within me: determination. The next morning I called in sick to work and contacted the best divorce attorney in the city, Jonathan Blackwell. In his office I laid out everything that had happened and everything I had discovered. "This is quite a situation," Jonathan said gravely after I finished. "The good news is that your prenuptial agreement is solid, especially with the evidence of infidelity you have collected. The correspondence showing her intent to hide assets is extremely helpful to our case. We spent hours developing a comprehensive strategy." Jonathan advised me to continue gathering evidence while being careful not to alert Jessica to my plans. He also suggested I consult with a financial advisor immediately to protect my assets. "What about the condo my mother lives in?" I asked. "It is in my name. You are within your rights to sell it," he confirmed. "It is your property. However, if you have been providing financial support, we should review whether there are any implied contracts or commitments there." That afternoon, I met with my financial advisor, Rachel Torres. She was alarmed by the situation and immediately helped me secure my accounts. "First, we need to open new accounts at a different bank," she advised. "Then gradually transfer funds to protect your assets without raising red flags. We will also need to document all your current financial arrangements with both Jessica and your mother." As we reviewed my finances, I discovered something disturbing. The generous monthly allowance I provided my mother intended for her basic needs and occasional luxuries had been largely going toward expensive jewelry designer clothing and even funding spa vacations with Jessica that I had known nothing about. My mother had been living far more extravagantly than I had realized, treating my financial support as an unlimited resource while conspiring against me. Over the next 2 weeks, I meticulously followed the advice of my attorney and financial advisor. I secured my most important assets, documented every piece of evidence, and prepared for the confrontation that was inevitable. During this time, I maintained a facade of normalcy, pretending to be working through my feelings about the affair, while Jessica played the role of the remorseful wife only when others were watching. At night, alone in our guest bedroom, where I had been sleeping since discovering the affair, I struggled with waves of grief, anger, and betrayal. The life I had believed in had been a carefully constructed illusion. The two people I had trusted most had been using me for years. But through the pain I found a resolve I had not known I possessed. I would not be a victim any longer. When everything was in place, I took a day off work and arranged for both Jessica and my mother to meet me at our home, telling them I wanted to discuss moving forward as a family. They arrived looking cautiously optimistic, clearly believing their manipulation was working. I sat them down in the living room, maintaining a calm expression that revealed nothing of what was to come. "I've been doing a lot of thinking about our future," I began. "About trust, loyalty, and what family truly means." Jessica reached for my hand with a practiced look of remorse. "I know I made a terrible mistake, Brewster, but I am so glad you are willing to work through this." My mother nodded encouragingly. "This is very mature of you, son. Forgiveness is the foundation of any strong family." I pulled my hand away from Jessica's and smiled without warmth. "Actually, I have not mentioned forgiveness. Before we discuss the future, I want to share something with both of you." I opened my laptop and played a recording of their kitchen conversation, watching as the color drained from their faces. Then I pulled out copies of their text exchanges, including the ones my mother had thought were deleted forever. I know everything I said quietly. I know about the months of deception. I know about your meetings with Michael, Mom. I know about your plans to maximize the financial benefits of divorcing me, Jessica. I know about the money you have been siphoning into your private account. The shock on their faces would have been satisfying if the situation were not so painful. They immediately shifted from confident manipulators to desperate damage control. "Brewster, I can explain." Jessica began, tears suddenly appearing. I was confused. I made mistakes. "This is all being taken out of context," my mother interrupted. "We were just talking. It was not serious." I held up my hand, stopping their frantic excuses. "I have filed for divorce, Jessica. My lawyer has all the evidence of your affair and your attempts to hide assets. The prenup will be enforced to the letter, which means you get nothing beyond what you brought into the marriage." Jessica's fake tears turned to genuine panic. "You cannot do that. I have rights." "Yes, you do," I agreed calmly. "You have the right to hire a lawyer and contest it, but you will lose. The evidence is overwhelming." I turned to my mother, whose face had gone pale. "As for you, Mom, I have put the condo on the market. You have 30 days to find a new place to live. You would put your own mother out on the street," she gasped, clutching her chest dramatically. "No, I have deposited 6 months' worth of reasonable rent into an account for you. After that, you will need to support yourself, just like other adults do. The monthly payments I have been making to you will stop effective immediately." They both began talking at once, shifting between anger, pleading, and accusations. Jessica claimed I was being cruel and vindictive. My mother reminded me of all she had sacrificed raising me as a single parent. But their words no longer had the power to manipulate me. "You both had choices," I said when they finally ran out of breath. "You chose to betray me, to conspire against me, to take advantage of my trust and generosity. Now I am making my choice to walk away from toxic relationships and to value myself enough to demand basic loyalty and respect." "What about Michael?" Jessica suddenly demanded. "Are you going to ruin his career too?" I smiled grimly. "I had a private meeting with the senior partners yesterday. Michael has been terminated for ethical violations, specifically for using confidential information obtained through personal relationships for professional gain. His reputation in the industry is finished. As reality sank in, both women realized the extent to which they had miscalculated. The financial security they had taken for granted was gone. The man they had underestimated and planned to manipulate had outmaneuvered them completely. "I want you both out of my house today," I said, standing up to signal that the conversation was over. "You can collect your personal belongings with the supervision of my attorney's representative, who is waiting outside. Anything you leave behind will be donated to charity." As they left, shell-shocked and finally silent, I felt no triumph, only a profound sadness for what could have been, and the painful freedom of cutting toxic ties. The weeks and months following that final confrontation were some of the hardest of my life. Despite knowing I had made the right decision, the void left by removing my wife and mother from my life was enormous. There were nights I lay awake wondering if I could have done something differently, if there had been signs I missed earlier, if I somehow deserved what had happened to me. Therapy became my lifeline during this period. My therapist, Dr. Lawson, helped me understand that I had been in relationships with people who showed narcissistic traits, who valued what I could provide rather than who I truly was. The hardest part of healing from betrayal, Dr. Lawson explained during one particularly difficult session, is not letting it destroy your capacity to trust. Not everyone will betray you the way Jessica and your mother did. I joined a support group for people who had experienced similar betrayals. The stories shared in that circle of trust helped me realize I was not alone in my experience. There was Mark, whose wife of 15 years had been leading a double life with his best friend. There was Sophia, whose parents had stolen her inheritance and left her with nothing. Hearing how they were rebuilding their lives gave me hope that I could do the same. At first, I threw myself into work, using the long hours as a distraction from the emptiness at home. But gradually I began to rediscover old interests and develop new ones. I took up rock climbing, something I had always wanted to try, but Jessica had discouraged. I joined a book club, reconnecting with my love of literature. I volunteered at a youth mentoring program, finding unexpected joy in helping teenagers navigate their own challenges. New friendships developed naturally through these activities, authentic connections based on shared interests rather than obligation or dependency. I learned to be more discerning about who I allowed into my inner circle, valuing actions over words and consistency over charm. The divorce proceedings moved forward more smoothly than expected. With the overwhelming evidence I had gathered, Jessica's attorney advised her to settle quickly rather than face a protracted and embarrassing court battle. She left with only her personal belongings and the car I had given her as a birthday present the year before. The house sold quickly, and I moved into a smaller but more peaceful home in a different neighborhood where memories did not lurk around every corner. My mother attempted to contact me multiple times after moving out of the condo, alternating between angry accusations and tearful pleas. I maintained my boundary, communicating only through my attorney when necessary. It was a painful but necessary separation from the unhealthy dynamic that had defined our relationship for years. A year after that fateful day when I discovered the affair, my life had transformed in ways I never could have predicted. The divorce was finalized with terms that protected my assets and career. Jessica had moved to another state with Michael, whose professional reputation had been irreparably damaged by the scandal. My mother was living in a modest apartment, supporting herself with a part-time job for the first time in years. As for me, I had channeled my experience into something positive. Using my financial expertise, I started my own investment advisory firm, specializing in helping people protect their assets during major life transitions like divorce. The business quickly gained a reputation for integrity and client-centered service, growing beyond my expectations in its first year. I even cautiously began dating again, taking things slowly and being honest about my past. To my surprise, sharing my experience did not scare away potential partners, but rather created space for authentic connection. While I was not ready for anything serious yet, the experience showed me that my capacity for trust was healing. The most unexpected development came in the form of a letter from Jessica's younger sister, Alicia. We had always gotten along well, but family loyalty had kept her distant after the divorce. Her message was simple but profound. I want you to know that not everyone in the family supported what Jessica and Mom did. Some of us still believe in loyalty and honesty. I am sorry for what you went through. That small acknowledgement from someone connected to my past helped heal a wound I had not realized was still open. It reminded me that betrayal is about the choices individuals make, not an inevitable outcome of trusting others. Looking back on the journey from betrayal to recovery, I realized that the most important relationship I had rebuilt was with myself. I had learned to value my own well-being, to set healthy boundaries, and to recognize that providing financial support does not entitle others to loyalty. It must be freely given and reciprocated. The pain of betrayal had transformed into a kind of wisdom. I now understood that true love must include respect, that generosity should be met with gratitude rather than entitlement, and that walking away from toxic relationships is not failure, but an act of necessary self-preservation. My story is not one of perfect healing. There are still days when the hurt resurfaces, when trust feels like a risky proposition. But those moments no longer define me or dictate my choices. In cutting off the financial support that had become a tool of manipulation and walking away from those who betrayed me, I found something more valuable than anything money could buy: authentic freedom and self-respect. Life is too short to remain in relationships that drain rather than nourish us, too precious to waste on people who see us as resources rather than human beings worthy of loyalty and honesty. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is walk away, creating space for something better to enter our lives. If my story resonates with you, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to make the difficult decision to walk away from someone who betrayed your trust? How did you rebuild your life afterward? Please like this video if it meant something to you. Subscribe for more authentic life stories and share with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to choose yourself sometimes. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that your worth is not determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to respond when faced with betrayal.